Hey guys, welcome to Inside the Circuit, the show that brings you all the latest news and insights from the world of Roborace, tech, and auto. I'm Safian Farbal, coming to you live from the Central Coast of California again, from the comfort of my own home studio. Hope you guys are happy with it. Welcome everyone. And for those new to Roborace, you guys might have been wondering what it's all about. It's the world's first fully autonomous race series, all-electric race series, and we're halfway through the season beta. The cars have been racing one at a time on the track. But later on this year, our teams will hopefully start racing wheel to wheel in season one. So that hopefully, we don't know for sure yet. We'll see when that happens. And now to kick off the start of the show, let's take a look at some of the news that broke earlier this week. It's been reported that electric vehicle maker Arrival is aiming to start production of cars by 2023 with design input from Uber. It's the latest step in the zero emissions manufacturer's ambitious plans to take on the automotive industry. The car, developed specifically for use by ride-hailing drivers, will be Arrival's first car, adding to buses that are due on the road in the UK later this year. Urban vehicle vans are coming too, all electric. The ride-hailing car will be built using similar principles to Arrival's battery electric buses and vans, which will use robotized micro factories close to key markets to undercut car makers who rely on traditional production lines. The design of the car aims to be more comfortable for drivers who spend many hours a day at the wheel and will be fitted with hard-wearing, easy-to-clean materials. Other features could include a front passenger seat that folds away to fit more luggage and a panoramic glass roof. Sounds kind of familiar to the car I drive every day. Arrival's long-expected move into electric cars will pit it directly against the world's biggest car makers, such as Volkswagen and Toyota. Looking at the successes so far of the bus and vans projects, you wouldn't bet against them. So that was the news this week. Last week, we brought you some very exciting news that self-driving vehicles could be allowed on the UK roads by the end of the year, with restrictions, of course. The UK Department of Transport said that automated lane keeping systems, ALKS, will be the first type of hands-free driving legalized ever. We thought that this was such a cool topic that it needed to be revisited further, and with an expert in the house. But luckily, we have the perfect person to talk to you about road safety, and he works right here on our team. It's the one and only very busy Bryn Balcom, Roborace Chief Strategy Officer. Earlier, Bryn and I enjoyed having a chat. We recorded the session earlier, going into the subject in more detail. So let's check it out. Hey, how's it going, Bryn? Thanks for joining us today. How you doing today?
Yeah, very good, very good. It's a great day here in the UK.
A few tongue twisters there. It's a great day here too. I think they must have known that we're going to talk to each other today. I think so.
It's a good day to be inside.
The stars align. Wow. So thanks for joining us. So you're with Roborace. Kind of interested in what you do with Roborace and how you got involved with that.
Yeah, so I've been here nearly 5 years, I think it is, with Roborace. So it's quite a long time, right at the very beginning. I think I was employee number 2 formerly within Roborace as a company. Awesome. Currently Chief Strategy Officer. So I kind of hide in the background and work with all the faces that you've seen before, like Rolly and Chip and Mike and Evan. So I kind of like sit in the background trying to glue some stuff together.
Yeah, music's nice.
Things like the metaverse,
I
put the first pattern together with Mike on that. So that's kind of those interesting things.
That's really cool. So in terms of strategy, is it like business strategy or just how you're going to go about a project or just the whole thing in general? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I think, it's really the whole thing. So if you think, we kind of launched and said we're electric, connected and autonomous. That's the 3 main pillars that the whole industry was talking about. 4 or 5 years ago, every CEO at every automotive company was using those 3 words. But motorsport isn't that and wasn't that. And now it's a question of, well, how do you make it that? What's the strategy for bringing that to life? And, you could look at it and say, well, you just do Formula 1 or Formula E, you just take the driver out. And, that's one approach. But obviously you can see the direction that we're moving now with the metaverse, which is actually completely different. It's really looking for those USPs that you can introduce with autonomy that actually create a completely different show, a completely different feeling, completely different competition. And that's the exciting bit, you know, and seeing some of these things we've been talking about for the last few years coming to life now. You know, we've got an amazing team working on it, as I'm sure you're aware, because you're working with them over there. But
Yeah,
it's really great. You know, it's great to see it come to life.
Yeah. So how does it compare to working in Formula One in that environment and the strategy there? Were you doing the same sort of similar thing?
No, so at Formula One, I was there for, I think it was like 16 years. I was there, probably 20 if you when I actually started. I was like 17, 18 when I first started there. So in Formula One, I had a variety of roles. I designed the onboard camera communication system, patented that when I was 23. So all V2X technology before V2X was even a phrase, you know, so 300-mile-an-hour cars, transmitting video, data, audio, around a ground-based circuit, you know. So yeah, so that was really cool. The last thing I did for them was the global media network that they're currently running off. So all of the fiber optic connections into the circuits to bring back all their video content. So it was great for me to see that during the pandemic, Formula One actually switched that on. It's been there for 7 years. And because of the pandemic, they needed to remote production, just as we're doing with Roborace, and therefore they needed all of that bandwidth and all of that connectivity. So they finally made the switch and split the production. So the production team now stay in the UK, and the operations team install all the equipment at the trackside. But yeah, I think it's about 2/3 of people now stay in the UK, which is great from a COVID perspective, but also then from an emissions perspective.
So do you think like Roborace is taking a similar approach, or are we doing things a little bit differently? Like what's the benefit of the way Roborace is doing things now?
Well, we have the advantage in our competition format of being able to do everything remotely, as you've seen, you know, with the teams being able to participate remotely because we're running and operating the cars. And again, that was a strategic decision right at the beginning in order to make sure that the effort and the focus of the teams is on software development. You know, you need a big team of people to run and just run the cars, whatever type of race car it is. So by us taking that on at Roborace, it means the team's focused specifically on the innovations on software. So I think that's probably the main difference for us.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's like, you know, some people I've seen. We'll get to some of those questions later on, but they were wondering how different it is without a driver involved in this sport. I mean, the excitement level, with just seeing a car out there. What is the pull for the audience? In your opinion, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Formula One fan, and I have been for all my life. But when you break it down, if you look, and I'm more hyper aware to it now, it's really hard to tell the difference between the drivers in Formula One.
That's true.
You know, so you can see it's a Mercedes, you know, normally, but you can't really tell which driver it is unless there's a graphic up telling you. And I've seen commentators commentate on the wrong driver for a number of corners before they realize, you know, so, but I tell that story really because what you're looking at, Soph, is the behavior of the vehicle. It's not like football, it's not like tennis, or, you know, even American football or basketball, where you can see the physical movement of the player and you can see their facial expressions and their reactions and their body movement is all part of the sport. In Formula One, it's the movement of the vehicle against the other vehicle. And that's the same for any motorsport. So I actually believe that we see personality through the behavior of the vehicle. So and that's separate to then the off-track personality. You know? So I often say you can create sort of Nicky Lauda on track, but you can't create James Hunt off track. You know, the AI is not at that level. You know, it's not going to have that level of personality. So but that's fascinating. And there's been some really interesting research where they just have humans just put emotions on top of objects. So you see two dots moving around randomly on a screen, and humans interpret that as one dot chasing the other dot or being aggressive to the other dot. But they're just random motions. Yeah, but you kind of interpret it like that. And I think it's the same for motorsport.
Wonderful. Yeah, I personally think that you know we don't get enough coverage from behind the scenes to see the whole team, because it's not just about the driver in motorsport. It's about or the pilot. It's about the team making it possible, right? And then building the vehicle, And so for me, Roborace is exciting because you get to meet all the guys, the software engineers, and the people making it possible, not just because there is no driver, right? So it's all about the team in this regard. So yeah, I think that's a great way with which Roborace is doing to bring the teams to light.
Yeah, and I think we got the approach of this sort of radical transparency. What I really like about that is that, and one of the reasons it's great working with universities is that the software they're developing, they're sharing. So they're talking about it. And for universities, they need to publish it publicly. In motorsport, you don't want to give away any of your data to anybody. So there's actually a reason why those engineers aren't shown, is because they might give away some information that no one wants out. Yeah,
or they might be cheating.
Yeah, that's obviously happens. And I think that's what's fundamentally different, is that if we're running and operating the cars, sharing car data and being able to do comparisons between all the car data, that's fine. You're not giving anything away about the design of the vehicle, because all the vehicles are the same. You're just being able to then more directly compare driver performance, and that's really what you're interested in motorsport, is the comparison of drivers. So I think we can give away a lot more information, and actually some of that information is really what enables us to do the metaverse. That highly accurate positioning of the vehicles isn't available in Formula One. They're still running on a sort of GPS based system that isn't accurate enough to do the types of things that we're doing. And again, they don't want that data to be accurate, because other teams will get it and other teams will know how they reverse engineer their car. So yeah, so we've got, it's one of the reasons I joined Roborace, is that we have access to data about the 3D environment, data about the cars that you just can't access in Formula One because it's a manufacturer's competition. So I think that's key for us.
It's wonderful. And then what about the high level motivation for, why Roborace, the benefits that it could have for society, and, the safety aspect of things? Because I know you had some experience, in the San Mateo Grand Prix in 1994 that was, really changed the way motorsport looked at safety. So, I mean, how has that affected you in going forward with Roborace, and, the implications it could have, for society?
So I think a couple of years ago now, we spun out a separate organization called the Autonomous Drivers Alliance. And through that, we've actually been engaging in road safety, basically regulations for automated vehicles. So we needed to do that from a sporting perspective, to have almost like a governing body that would be responsible for rules and regulations in motorsport. And what we actually realized when we started working on that was rules and regulations on the road don't exist. So there was nothing that we could adopt in motorsport to say, okay, this would make it road relevant. So we've defined what we think is relevant within motorsport, and now we're pushing that down and trying to advance the standards and regulations on the road. And that's working really well. So I do believe motorsport can play a huge role in not only developing the technology, but also changing the regulatory structure, helping to build trust with the public in these new technologies, as well as developing the talent, the people that are designing these vehicles. In terms of what you're referencing with Ayrton Senna's fatality, that's one of the things that led me back into motorsport. So I started in '92, working for Bernie Ecclestone's company. I then went off and did airbag design while I was at university, working for Lotus Engineering. So on the safety side of sport rather than sport. And then when I graduated after the Senna fatality, Formula One started to focus much more on safety technology. So I reached back out and said, look, I'd love to combine those two things together. I joined, did something completely different, but it was that made the link again, that I wanted to get back involved. And for me, it's the same with these technologies. These are life-saving technologies we're developing, giving the car's perception of the environment and the understanding, and then the ability to react to that will save lives in the future. So that's really what we're pushing on.
100%. I love it. And talking about those regulations you mentioned, we saw last week some news of the UK allowing the first rules for self-driving vehicles up to 37 miles per hour, right? Without actually touching the wheel. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a thorny topic. That is. You mentioned, did you say you've got a Tesla?
Yeah, I've got the
So
full
you've
self-driving beta too, so it's fascinating just watching what it can do. Yeah.
yeah. So I've not experienced that yet. So I'd love to experience it. So maybe when I come over
Sure.
to the US, you can take me out for a ride.
Yeah,
And
I'd love
let's
that.
hope
That'd
let's
be
hope we
great.
don't crash into a tree. That's all I can say.
No. The thing
Uh,
is you're still operating the vehicle, so it's still my responsibility. So you would
exactly. Yeah.
intervene and take over.
Yeah.
But the thing
And
is
that's the
with the,
difference with the.
yeah,
I was gonna say that's the difference with this regulation that they're bringing
right.
out in
You
the
don't have
in
to
the
touch the
in the
wheel with
UK.
that. Uh-huh.
Well, this is ALKS. So this is regulation that's been done at the UN level, and the UK are now looking to say, can we adopt this? How should we adopt it? But you're right. At that point, this is the switch where, while the vehicle is on a motorway in a traffic jam, you're able to not be a driver anymore. You're able to step
Exactly.
away from the wheel and do something else, which, look at your phone or read a
Which people
book or
do
get your
anyway.
laptop out.
Without the full
And that's
self-driving,
that.
they're doing it. It's a
Yeah,
scary
and
thing.
that's the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm fascinated by it. It was a bit of a surprise when the UK announced
totally.
this,
Yeah,
because
me
I've been
too.
involved in the UK has been doing a 3-year consultation on regulations for automated driving, and that is due to publish at the end of the year. So this seems a little bit out of sync with that regulation. I would also say that the way I read the regulations, you end up with a situation. Assume you're in the middle lane of a 3-lane motorway. You're in a traffic jam. You've decided to put on this system. You're on your phone or you're engaging on your laptop. They haven't really defined what's acceptable yet in terms of what you can
YouTube.
do as another task. But so it could be anything.
Right.
Um, and then as the cars all accelerate, you get to the end. Let's say you've had this traffic jam, it comes to an end and everyone starts to speed up. So the car will accelerate to 37 miles an hour. At that point, when it reaches 37, it may give you an indication to say, I've reached the end of my ODD.
Ding
So
or
it gives you an
something like
alarm.
that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you've then got 10 seconds to take over.
Uh-huh.
And now the research shows that you will take all of the 10 seconds because
You're enjoying
you have
it.
10 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and also you've got time to finish your email and put your laptop on the
Yeah,
side.
you're in the middle of something for sure.
Before you take over. What's fascinating is that by the time you've done all of that, you're still doing 37. The traffic around you is doing 69 miles an hour.
Yikes.
Now, if you don't take over at the end of that 10 seconds, the vehicle will brake aggressively
So
and
that's
stop
even worse.
in lane, which
For
is
the
kind of
people
even
behind
worse.
you.
And so that's what's really interesting is that for the driver inside, they might be getting all these warnings and alarms, and we focus a lot on the human factors related to the driver in the vehicle. But if you're following that car, you've got no idea what's going on ahead. You've got no expectation that this car's going to stop when it's got a clear road in front of it. And so they're the safety implications around these systems, which haven't really been investigated yet. So, the UK.
I would hope it would slow down gradually, because the thing with Tesla, when you're there's a thing that we call autopilot jail. So if you don't trigger the steering wheel or let the car know that you're there 3 times over the course of a drive, it will do the same thing. It will actually start disengaging, slowing down, but very gradually.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a surprise, but I agree with you. If the car is jamming on the brakes, that's going to be extremely disconcerting.
Yeah,
for
I think it's
following.
like 4 meters per second squared, so it's classed as aggressive driving, basically.
Wow.
That's in the regulation that you are allowed to do that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And so you have that is what I think is going to be really interesting. Whether that can be classed as self-driving. The other thing is it's got no rear view mirrors. So the ALKS system has no rearward visibility. So it slams on the anchors, not even knowing whether there's a truck behind you. So it doesn't care. And what's fascinating is that 1968 convention says you have to have mirrors on every vehicle, no matter what. And the UK Highway Code says that if you're going to change your speed, you need to look in your mirrors first. And effectively, so ALKS doesn't even meet.
Yeah, I would be surprised. Maybe some manufacturers would think it's just a good idea. A lot of them have rear-facing cameras anyway, so they might be able to just, as in advanced thinking, just actually put, use that data. Maybe they can do some analysis of the camera.
Yeah, again, it's not in the regulation, so if you can get your vehicle approved without that. And so what the UK are now deciding is whether they would consider that to be self-driving. And so the UK has kind of separated itself from Europe. In actual fact, there's a new article in the Convention on Road Traffic, which means every individual country can decide their own regulations for automated driving. So it's a complete patchwork out there now. And so they will now, the UK will now define whether they consider ALKS to be self-driving or not. So that'll be their decision.
It's an interesting step.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I like that they've made a step forward, and someone's actually saying we need to try something, because, you know, in reality, it's just so dangerous out there. So many crashes every second, right? So I don't know the exact statistics, but it's one of the dangerous things that all of us do.
Yeah, I think you've got like 40,000 fatalities in the US. We have around 1,800 here in the UK. There's about 1.3 million globally each year. So yeah, it's but a lot of that can be controlled by wearing your seatbelt and not being drunk, not being drowsy, not being distracted. You know, a lot of those, you know, basics are the things that can save the majority of lives. So you don't really need self-driving to sort those out.
True. Yeah. It's just us human beings have a hard time with not being human, right? not doing silly things. So.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the, I posted a video. I don't know if you've seen it, Sof, on LinkedIn, but as a tester only, you should have a look, because
I'll definitely check it out.
It's the Tesla driving through a city, and it displays drunk, drowsy, and distracted driving. You know, it fails on multiple occasions in a 30-minute drive. And its behavior, if you were following it, you would say, okay, yeah, that's a drunk driver in there. And I heard in Canada, they pulled someone over recently. This is an anecdote, I can't quote exactly, but they pulled someone over thinking that they were drunk, and he was like, oh no, I just had the self-driving system engaged.
Oh no.
It's like,
not good.
Not a good sign. So
right, I got to change the subject and ask you one last question if we just got a second. So so I've heard that you have a big goal for 2050. Can you tell us about that? And then we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, so through ADA, one of the things that we're working on is sort of what we call mission zero. So it's that ability to have 0 fatalities and 0 carbon emissions by 2050. And I think Roborace is a great example of that, you know, with the electric technology that we're doing and the self-driving technology we're doing. And as I say, over time, we're not there yet, but over time, so these technologies will save lives on the road. And so that's the big goal. That's the big aim.
100%. Well, I agree with you with all that. So it's lovely to chat with you. Thanks so much for making the time in your busy schedule. I'm sure you've got a lot of stuff going on. So thanks.
No problem at all. Yeah, it's great to speak to you.
Awesome. All right. Take care.
Cheers. Thank you.
Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Well, I've said it once before, and I'll say it again. Bringing a new motorsport like Roborace to the masses is not easy. It's definitely super hard. I've been involved with the tech for quite a while now, and I've seen this with my own eyes. It takes so much work to create something new, and the motorsport plus the technology is really complicated. So I get it that you guys, or some of you guys, might be overwhelmed with the tech. It's okay. It's totally normal. But please don't hesitate to ask us any questions you might have. You can ask us in the Twitch chat, and we'll always try our best to answer your questions. Awesome. And we're also available on Twitter and Instagram, so please keep them coming. So now it's time for our brand new feature section, Mythbusters. All right, joining me today is our creative director, Rolly French. He's going to help us answer some of these questions. Hey, Rolly, great to see you. How you doing?
Yeah. Hi, Sophia. Good to see you too. I don't know how many myths I'll be able to dispel, but I'll have a go.
Awesome. But before we get into the Q&A, can you let the audience know a little bit about you and what you do at Roborace?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Chief of Creative at Roborace, which means I work across all of our visual output, focusing on films, and also kind of future vision of what the sport could be.
Okay, awesome. And handling Season Beta and bringing it to life, I see, you basically created this motorsport from nothing. How did that feel doing that?
Yeah, I mean, we're a small team, and it's obviously a team effort. I think the truth is it's not been created yet, to be honest. What we're doing now is we're working towards a much greater vision of autonomous racing, but we haven't quite got there yet. But in saying that, being in at the beginning of Season Beta has been incredible. We're rebirthing ourselves constantly, and the development and creativity is immense. But it also means it can be tough going, because we're trying to innovate as a team almost every aspect of what motorsport is traditionally. But that makes it really rewarding.
Awesome. It sounds super rewarding, and I've loved watching it too. So what else are you focused on right now?
In terms of Season Beta, we're preparing for Mission 5 in Las Vegas next month. We've started using the word mission because we're trying to explain that that our format is changing every time we go out. We're kind of iterating constantly evolving, I guess. So we're moving tracks within the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We're on a new track within the site, which is going to be fantastic. It's got a slightly longer straightaway. One of the things we found with our last track is that there wasn't really a long enough straight for the cars to get even close to their top speed. So we're moving to a different track to try and get that speed up. So there's a lot of work going into the production in preparation for this new track. And then because it's Season Beta and because we're iterating every time, we're recreating the look of our show, which is sort of the equivalent of trying on different coats and seeing which one we like and which one suits us. So we're doing our redesign right now. We're also in the middle of the Lucas Challenge, which for those of you who joined the show last week, you'd have seen. So I'm talking with Lucas. That's a competition between Formula E world champion Lucas Di Grassi and Arrival Racing, and the next chapter of that story is just about to play out. So we're working on that. And then finally, there's a special project that we're also working on, which is kind of visualizing what the future of autonomous racing will look like in 10 years' time, and the steps that we need to take in order to get there. And that particular project is very close to my heart.
Wow, I'm really excited about that. That's a lot of stuff to look forward to. Well, thanks so much for giving us that background. So let's move to some questions now. Rolly, if you want to take a look, there's some of these.
Sure, yeah.
All right. So our first question, yeah, sure. It comes up from Twitter, and it's from Devanya, and I apologize if I got your name wrong. Can a mechanical, sorry, I didn't read that in time when it was up, but can a mechanical or mechatronics engineer join Roborace, was the question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away the fact that I'm basically 5 years old, but how cool is it that we're in an industry where mechatronics engineer is a title? That's so cool. So I think the answer is we've got a great bulletin board for jobs within our company on the Roborace LinkedIn page. So that's definitely some place to go check out if you're interested in working in the company. But then equally, I would say, if you've got some incredible talent that we don't know we need yet, then email us at hello@roborace.com. And if you're awesome, then we'll reply.
Awesome. Great. Well, that's super cool. Right out of the box, someone wants to join Roborace. I love it. So
great.
Okay, so I love it. I love the enthusiasm. So super excellent. So let's get into our next question. This one was actually sent to us via Instagram. And yes, we do check our DMs, so please keep them coming. And we really appreciate it. This one's a video, so we'll run it right now.
Cool.
Hi, it's John here from Dublin. I grew up watching brilliant drivers like Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, more recently Lewis Hamilton, and of course Colin McRae. Wondering why people would care about a series that doesn't include brilliant drivers.
Okay, I'll have a crack at that. I think
awesome.
I actually get asked this question all the time because I'm a real car guy, and a lot of my pals are real car people too, and so I get asked this question quite a bit. And I think for me there are two different answers, a kind of longer one and a short one. So if you bear with me, I think the longer one is, as someone who creates shows, usually using cars, I know that there are buttons that you can push with the audience to connect them to an inanimate object, based around senses mostly, but also human behavior. So Bryn sort of touched on this slightly earlier with the two dots bouncing around the screen and kind of feeling like one dot maybe chasing the other. That's kind of human behavior. But So, for example, I'll give you an example. You have two cars, one's red and one's blue. So you already start to draw a subconscious preference from people based around which one they like best. And then you can do that with shape too. And then sound as well. So sound is really important for us, and we're something we're working on quite hard. But one particular vehicle might have a deep bassy sound, and another one has a more of a complex high-pitched noise. And again, you shuffle the audience into different choices, different selections. And then you get into that human behavior element that Bryn was talking about, which is really interesting because as a species, we do have this innate tendency to attribute character and feelings to things. And then finally, you add the differences between how the AIs race, because sometimes I talk to people and they think that Roborace is like Scalextrics, right? The cars just go on track and they just run around a line, which couldn't be further from the truth. And I'll give you an example. Team Pisa had for a while over the last few of our missions quite an aggressive racing AI on track, right? So it was locking up its wheels to the braking zones almost every time. I was a big fan of it because I'm so childish. But it felt like Team Pisa's car was on the edge. It felt like it was pushing. And then
it's like Mad Max mode.
Yeah, 100%. And then in the last mission, Arrival Racing's AI actually slid off the track trying to snatch a collectible at the last second. So it was running along, there was a loot on its right-hand side. It kind of speared off towards it. It did the calculations, thought it could make it, couldn't, failed, and slid off track. And that sort of hope and then defeat feels so human-like. But in both cases, it's coding at work, right? So with varying degrees of success. But once the audience realize that there's fallibility and that within the competition there'll be winners and losers, and therefore there'll be an underdog, all of these things, so if you mix them together, and I think people will have a stronger connection with AI races than they think. But the second answer is more simple, which is I think that trying to judge autonomous racing by thinking it's going to be a mirror of normal motorsport, just without drivers is a mistake. When Roborace launches our new vision of autonomous racing, the tracks, the driving, it'll all be so far beyond what people understand and expect right now. And then we move to a place where the AI racers are let off the leash of human understanding, and the action will morph, and it won't be anything even remotely like a car race. And then comparing them to a human-based race will feel totally pointless and outdated. So depending on how interested somebody is, I usually say one of those two things.
I love that answer. And that's I can feel the passion there, so it's really appreciate it. So yeah, here's another tweet we got from Laco Lucas, and I'll read this one to you. So he asks, how did you solve the wet road cold tire problem so the car does not drift, and can it drift? So I pulled in some help here from one of the Roborace engineers, Matt Smith, who had an answer for us. And I'll give you my take on his answer as well. So he said, the teams have to make estimations about track conditions, whether it is dry or wet. And presumably, in my opinion, that the code is adjusting, taking into account these estimations. He continues by saying, from past experience gained, teams can guess what performance targets will be for the limit. Some teams have implemented systems where the performance targets are reduced in the event of incidents where the vehicle has exceeded the performance limits set to exceed some thresholds or control the error. Yeah, so basically that's what he's saying. So anyway,
wow.
So up next we have
an
another
engineer's
question.
Answer for sure.
yeah, I know. My take on that is just basically it finds the limit and just tries to keep under that limit, and depending on how much risk they want to take. So, okay, so
and they need to drift as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I was just going to say they need to drift. Like our race cars in the future will drift. Like drifting is like being able to operate beyond the limit is a key part of the,
and they do already. I've seen the videos where they're going through the chicane in wet weather, and the cars can drift already. So it's definitely possible. Cool. Okay, so let's go to Emily Crompton in Chester, who has a video question here.
Hello, my name's Emily from Chester, and I would love to know when Roborace will have more cars racing on the track.
Okay,
great
thank you,
question.
Emily.
You want to take that, Rolly?
It's a great
Yeah, go for it.
question. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's a great question. So it's something that, as a team, we're working really hard on. And for anyone who's seen Mission 4, you'll see the green shoots of our efforts already. So during Mission 4, we had ghost cars out on track for the very first time, which are augmented reality racers out on track that the teams had to identify. They see these, they see the AR just 100 meters away from their position, and they have to kind of avoid them, overtake them, and deal with them. And they looked amazing. Obviously, they're like based around. I mean, one was a dolphin. There was a hover car. I mean, they were just amazing. But they really serve a vital purpose as well, because the AIs don't make a distinction between the metaverse and reality. So for them, that dolphin is as real as a physical car. And that's the key. This is sort of advanced training for the ADS. So if the AI can race, overtake, and avoid these ghost cars, then we can swap the AR out for real cars. And we're sort of supercharging their education. So it's something we're already, kind of working incredibly hard on.
I love it. Yeah, thanks so much. That's awesome. I really love the metaverse as well. Those ghost cars.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
me
exactly.
too. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I can't wait to see that. Thanks so much, Emily, for sending in the video. We have time for one more question, and this one's from Kevin Koffold by Twitter. So he says, I read that Roborace is powered by Arrival. What technology by Arrival are you using for Roborace? And hey, Rally, I'd like to take this question. It's at the moment, Arrival Racing has been competing in Roborace, but they're also developing and manufacturing the Metabot for Roborace. So the Metabot will include a number of different Arrival technologies and products within, such as the ECUs, the steer-by-wire, brake-by-wire, and even the electric motors themselves. So we really couldn't do this without Arrival, and we really appreciate the contributions. So yeah, thanks. So sorry to rush you, Rowley, but we really want to thank you for your time today. I know you're super busy, but just got one last question for you though. What's something you wish that people would ask you, but no one does about Roborace?
I mean, I love it when people ask me what's next. Sometimes I get asked this, but not as often as I like, because what we're trying to do at Roborace is create the foundation for a groundbreaking new autonomous racing series, right? I think that's obvious. But imagining that that's just a racetrack and doing things that motorsport have been doing for the last 150 years totally misses the point. What we're trying to create is the kind of the science fiction version of motorsport, the sort of competition that I grew up as a sci-fi nerd dreaming about. That's what's next for Roborace, and that's what I love talking about. So my favorite question is always, what's next?
Awesome. So if you could make anything a reality from that sci-fi world that you're talking about, what would you wish that you could make real?
Oh my goodness, that's such a great question. There's so much, there's so many layers.
I know,
when you
man.
make shows, you talk about layers, and there's just like the kind of the concept of the future of Roborace at the moment that we're working on. It's just it's not just one core idea. It's like it's so broad, and there's so many pillars that hold it up. It's dynamic in so many different ways. It's impossible to pull one bit away, you know what I mean, and explain it. It's
maybe
I can't wait to be able to
in the virtual world itself. That would be kind of pretty cool. I know there's been a lot of movies like Tron and stuff where you're inside the computer. That'd be super fascinating.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we're looking at, with Epic Games at the moment is like how you can push into the metaverse and out of it. So if you're watching a race in reality, there'd be an Unreal Engine version of that race happening on Saturn, and you can push through it and watch the exact race playing out, but within Unreal, and then pull back again into reality. And it's like that sort of conversation is really exciting because it's doing something that the likes of Formula One would never consider, and we already have racing dolphins, so we're already doing stuff that nobody else would consider.
Thanks for the fish.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, cool, man. Well, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed your time today on the other side of the camera. I know you're working behind the scenes really hard, so I hope we can do it again. I really enjoyed it, and thanks so much.
Fab. Thanks, Soph. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. All right, so we're nearly out of time today. but just a reminder that Inside the Circuit is May 13th, and Mission 5 dates have now been confirmed. And although it's still a little way off, but approaching fast, we'll be back at Vegas on June 18th and 19th for rounds 11 and 12. We hope to see you guys there. And in terms of staying connected, you guys can always get in touch with us on our Roborace channel. Instead of, like I mentioned before, Instagram and Twitter as well, we're on there and we answer everybody. We're happy to respond to you guys' questions, so please keep them coming, and hope you guys enjoyed the show today. We'll see you again next week. Signing off for now.